Have you ever been talking in English, feeling pretty good about it, and then there's that little pause, that tiny moment where you think, hang on, did that sound right? Was that totally natural?
Yeah, that feeling. Wondering if some small slip just gave you away.
Exactly. So, what if I told you the secret to sounding even more fluent isn't about cramming more grammar, but maybe just sidestepping, say, 10 super common little errors?
Little errors that have a surprisingly big impact, right?
That's exactly our mission today. We're doing a deep dive into the 10 most frequent English mistakes,
Yeah.
really digging into Teacher Sam's tips.
And not just listing them, but understanding why they happen.
Precisely. We want to get the why and then give you these practical little tricks, we're calling them genius tips, that you can use like right away.
To really smooth things out, make it sound more natural.
Yeah, moving your English from good to great, making you sound more confident. We know you want those useful insights quickly without getting bogged down.
It's all about those aha moments and practical steps.
It really is amazing how fixing just these few things can make such a difference, not just in how clear you are, but how you feel when you speak.
That feeling of ease, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what we're aiming for, helping you get that flow.
absolutely. So we'll break down each mistake, get why it happens, and give you that genius tip. No fluff, just stuff you can use.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, mistake number one, and honestly, I hear this one all the time, even from really advanced speakers, saying, I am agree, instead of I agree.
Like, I am agree with your idea.
Right. So the fix is,
Super simple. Just, I agree with you. That's it.
and the core reason, why do people make this mistake?
It boils down to this. Agree is a verb. It's an action, a state of mind. It's not an adjective like happy or tall.
Ah, okay, so
Mm.
you don't need that am or is or are before it.
Exactly. You wouldn't say I am run. You'd say I run. Same logic. Agree does the work itself.
Got it. And the genius tip for really nailing this one.
Oh, this is great. Sam suggests just 5 minutes a day. Think of some opinions, anything really. Pizza is the best food.
Okay.
And then consciously say out loud, I agree, or I disagree, or learning grammar is fun. I agree. Watching movies helps English. I agree, or I disagree.
So you're just building that reflex.
Totally. It makes I agree feel completely automatic after a while.
It makes sense. And that focus on verbs leads us neatly into the second mistake, which is also about verb endings.
Ah, yes. The classic S confusion.
Yeah, confusing he go with he goes, my brother go to the gym.
Right. And the correct way is obviously he goes to school or my brother goes to the gym.
Why is that little S so important?
Well, in English, it's a core rule. For the third person singular, that's he, she, or it, in the simple present tense, you absolutely must add that S or S to the verb.
It's like a signal.
Exactly. It signals who's doing the action in the tense. It seems tiny, but grammatically it carries a lot of weight. Native speakers notice its absence immediately.
Okay, so how do we practice that effectively?
The genius tip here is to make it personal. Talk about your family, your friends, their routines. My sister plays the piano. My dad watches the news. My friend studies really hard. Say these kinds of sentences out loud.
Repetition again?
Yeah, but focused repetition. It helps your brain just automatically slot in that ES sound. When you talk about he, she, or it, builds the pathway.
Okay, building pathways. I like that. Now, mistake number 3. This one's about something missing. The verb to be.
Yes, like saying she very beautiful.
Exactly. Instead of she is very beautiful. That little is just disappears sometimes.
It does. And, while people will probably understand what you mean,
It sounds incomplete. Right.
totally incomplete. To a native speaker, it just feels like something's fundamentally missing. The to be verb am is crucial for descriptions, states, qualities, identities.
Yeah.
It links the subject to its description.
So the genius tip must be about remembering that link.
Pretty much. Just make a conscious mental check. Whenever you're describing someone or a place or even how you feel, ask yourself, am I linking a subject to a description?
Yes, yes.
Then you probably need is or are. Practice it actively. They are happy. This coffee is hot. You're learning fast.
Making that mental check a habit.
Exactly. It becomes second nature surprisingly quickly.
Okay, number 4. This one's a tiny word with a big job. Articles.
Yeah.
Specifically saying, I am student.
Ah, yes. Instead of I am a student.
That little A.
Yeah.
Why is it so tricky?
Well, many languages don't use articles in the same way English does, or at all sometimes, so it's not always intuitive.
Right.
But the rule in English is pretty clear. Singular, countable nouns like student, teacher, engineer almost always need an article before them. A, an, or the.
And leaving it out just sounds off.
It sounds a bit abrupt, yeah.
Unnatural. I am a student is the full, correct form.
So the genius tip for remembering this kindy word.
This one's simple but really effective. Every morning, stand in front of the mirror and introduce yourself. Seriously. Like talking to the mirror.
Yeah. Say, I am a teacher. I am an engineer. I am a manager. Whatever applies. That daily repetition, linking the article to your identity, really helps cement it.
I can see how that would work. Okay, number 5. Getting much and many mixed up.
Oh, a classic. Like saying, I don't have much friends.
Right, when it should be.
I don't have many friends. Or I have many friends.
So what's the rule here? Much versus many.
It all comes down to countable versus uncountable nouns. Much is for the uncountable stuff, things you can't easily count individually.
Like water, time, information.
Exactly. I don't have much time. There isn't much sugar. But many is for the countable things, things you can count.
Like friends, books, apples.
Precisely. I have many books. There are many people here.
Okay, countable versus uncountable. How can we practice that?
Genius tip. Grab a piece of paper, draw 2 columns. Label one much and the other many.
A visual aid.
Yeah. Then just fill it with nouns you use all the time. Put time, money, information under much. Put friends, emails, ideas under many. Look at it daily. It really clarifies the distinction.
Nice. Okay, halfway through. Mistake number 6. Relying too much on will for future plans.
Right. Someone might say, tomorrow I will go to the market.
Which isn't technically wrong, is it?
No, it's grammatically okay. But here's the nuance. For planned future actions in everyday conversation, going to often sounds much more natural.
Ah, so tomorrow I'm going to go to the market.
Exactly. It signals more clearly that it's a plan you've already made. It just has a more conversational, idiomatic flow. Will can sometimes sound a bit more formal or be for spontaneous decisions.
So going to for plans makes you sound more natural.
Generally, yes, in conversational English.
And the genius tip to make going to our default for plans.
Easy and practical. Write down your plans for the week. Use going to.
Just write them out.
Yep. On Tuesday, I'm going to call my client. This weekend, I'm going to see a movie. Tonight, I'm going to study prepositions. Doing this regularly makes it automatic when you speak.
Makes sense. Okay, number 7. This one feels like a direct translation issue for many people, saying, I have 25 years.
Oh, absolutely, because in many languages, you do have your age.
Right, but in English?
In English, we are our age. It's a state of being, not possession. So It's, I am 25 years old. Or simply, I am 25.
Not, I have 25.
Definitely not. That's one of those clear markers that someone's translating directly.
So the tip must be just practice saying it the English way.
Exactly that. The genius tip is just repetition with different ages. Say your own age correctly, then your family member's friends. I am 30. My brother is 28. My grandmother is 70.
Just saying it out loud reinforces the omniscient pattern for age.
Precisely. It overwrites the old habit.
Okay, number 8. Oh boy. Prepositions. Mixing up in, on, and at.
The Mount Everest of English grammar for many.
Totally. You had things like, I live at London, or see you on Tuesday, or she's good in painting.
Yeah, and those little words matter so much for clarity. They follow specific rules for time, place, ability.
So what are the correct versions there?
It should be. I live in London
Mm-hmm.
for cities, countries, large areas. See you on Tuesday for specific days. And she's good at painting for skills and abilities.
Each one has its job.
Very much so. They signal specific relationships.
This feels like something that needs dedicated practice. The genius tip.
Flashcards.
Here.
Seriously effective for prepositions. Write in, on, or at on one side.
And on the other.
Write common correct phrases in the morning, on the weekend, at night, in June, on the table, at the station. Review them daily.
So you start associating the preposition with the right context.
Exactly. You build those correct pairings in your mind.
Okay, nearly done. Number 9, saying more better.
Ah, the double comparative. This coffee is more better than the last one.
It feels like you should say more, but you shouldn't, right?
Right. Better already means more good. It is the comparative form. Adding more is redundant.
Like saying more faster or more taller.
Exactly the same mistake. The correct form is simply, this coffee is better than the last one.
So the genius tip is just remember better does the job alone.
Pretty much. Just consciously remember that better and other irregular comparatives like worse already includes the more. Practice comparing things. My new phone is better. This route is better. It trains your brain to drop the extra more.
Got it. And finally, mistake number 10, mixing up say and tell.
Yes, this trips people up. You might hear, he say me the answer.
When it should be.
He told me the answer.
Okay, what's the rule distinguishing them?
Generally, you say something, often the exact words, like he said, I'm ready, or she said hello. But you tell someone something. Tell usually needs a person, an indirect object, right after it.
Ah, so tell me, tell him, tell us.
Exactly. He told me a joke. She told them the news. You say something, but you tell someone.
That's a clear distinction. How can we practice that one?
The genius tip is to practice pairs of sentences. Say them one after the other.
Like?
She said she was happy. Then she told me she was happy. Or he said, it's late. Then he told us it was late. Hearing and saying both versions back to back really clarifies when to use which.
Okay, that makes sense. Practicing the contrast.
Right.
So we've gone through all 10. We've seen the mistake, the fix, the why, and a genius tip for each. But let's zoom out for a second. Why is fixing these specific things so important? What's the bigger impact?
That's a great question. Because it's not just about ticking grammar boxes, right?
Right.
Fixing these unlocks, I think, 3 really key benefits.
Okay, what are they?
First, clarity. Simple as that. People will understand you much more easily. Your sentences flow better. They're grammatically sound. No little stumbles for the listener.
Makes sense.
Second, confidence. And this is huge. When you know you're not making these common errors, you just feel better speaking. You feel prouder, more self-assured. That internal shift is massive.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And the third?
Connection. Because when you sound more natural, when your English flows smoothly without these little bumps, it helps you connect better with people. Native speakers, colleagues, friends. Communication just gets easier, more authentic.
Yeah, imagine walking into a job interview or meeting new people, not having these little errors subtly undermining you. That's powerful.
It really is. It changes how others hear you, but maybe more importantly, how you feel about your own ability to communicate effectively.
Okay, so people listening now know the mistakes. They know why they matter. What are some really concrete, practical things they can start doing, like today?
Right. Let's get actionable. It's all about focused practice. First idea, record yourself.
He's talking?
Yeah, talk for 2 minutes about your day, your hobbies, anything. Then, and this is key, listen back carefully. Try to spot any of these 10 mistakes in your own speech.
Self-diagnosis.
Exactly. Awareness is the first step to fixing anything.
Good one. What else?
Correct. In writing. This is powerful too. Write maybe 10 sentences a day.
Yeah.
Anything. Your thoughts, what you did. Then go back and check specifically for these 10 errors.
And if you find one?
Rewrite the sentence correctly. That act of finding and fixing really drills the rules in. It translates to speaking too.
Okay, recording and writing. Anything else?
Yes, something really effective for sounding natural. Shadowing.
Meaning?
Listen to native speakers' podcasts, YouTube, anything. Pause the audio and repeat exactly what they just said. Mimic their pronunciation, rhythm, and pay close attention to how they use agree, goes, is, better, all these things we've discussed.
So you're absorbing the natural patterns.
Precisely. It's not just copying. It's internalizing the flow of correct natural English.
And a final thought on practice.
Daily focus. Don't try to fix all 10 at once. That's overwhelming. Pick one mistake, just one. Focus on eliminating only that error for a whole week.
1 week, one mistake.
Yeah. Use all the techniques, listening, writing, speaking, just targeting that one thing, then move to the next. It's a gradual, manageable way to erase them all and build confidence step by step.
That sounds really doable because learning English, it's more than just textbooks, isn't it? It's about actually speaking, feeling confident doing it.
Absolutely. It's about expressing yourself clearly without those little hesitations caused by common errors.
And you listening now have the roadmap. You know the 10 mistakes, you know why they happen, and you've got practical tips to fix them.
Your English really can take a big leap forward starting right now.
So really, don't wait. Pick one tip, just one thing we talked about that clicked with you, and do it now. Record yourself for a minute. Write one correct sentence. Say, I agree out loud.
That immediate action makes all the difference. Avoid these mistakes, practice consistently, and speak with that confidence you're looking for.
The path is definitely clearer now.
For sure.
And hey, here's a final little thought to take away, something that really resonates. Remember, when you teach, you learn twice.
Ah, that's a good one.
So think about sharing just one of these tips, maybe the I agree one or the much many rule with a friend who's also learning.
Helping them helps you too.
Exactly. You help them, but you also reinforce it for yourself. You solidify your own understanding. It's a win-win, and you really will watch your English world open wide.